A group of displaced residents from Russia's southwestern Kursk region held a protest over what they claimed was the local governor's refusal to meet with them and offer more comprehensive support amid ongoing clashes between Russian and Ukrainian forces. According to the Moscow Times, more than 150,000 residents of border towns and villages in the Kursk region were forced to evacuate their homes after Ukrainian troops launched a surprise incursion in early August. Since then, displaced residents have staged multiple protests describing poor temporary accommodation and a lack of government compensation for lost and damaged property. It's been almost half a year since we were thrown out onto the street into a complete unknown, one woman said in a video shared by local media. We have no permanent place to stay. Our children are forgetting what home is, and the region's authorities refuse to acknowledge our growing problems. The woman accused Kursk region officials of intentionally delaying support, pointing out that President Vladimir Putin had publicly assured citizens that the government would fund recovery efforts. The president of Russia said the Kursk has no problems with funding, and yet we are constantly told we have no money, the woman said. It feels like the government doesn't need us, she added, calling for a face-to-face meeting with Alexander Kinstein, the newly appointed acting governor of the Kursk region. Flanked by other displaced residents from the region's Glushkovsky district, the woman criticized Kinstein for avoiding direct engagement with their community. Stop hiding from us behind the backs of initiative groups, she said. Local media reported that the residents were told Kinstein was unable to meet with them after getting sick. Since his appointment last month, Kinstein has held several meetings with displaced residents, but he has dismissed some of their demands as unfair. His predecessor, Alexei Smirnov, was reportedly sacked over his apparent inability to manage emergency relief efforts following Ukraine's surprise incursion. Meanwhile, Ukraine's military gains in the Kursk region have reportedly stalled amid reinforcements from Russia, including troops from its ally, North Korea. Russia's defense ministry said last week that its forces had reclaimed over 60% of the territory in the region initially occupied by Ukrainian forces. During his end-of-year press conference in December, Putin declined to specify when the Kursk region would be fully liberated.
To greet you in the warmest way.
Europe needs its own missile defense system like Israel's Iron Dome, that can deal with any kind of threat, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Tuesday. According to Associated Press, Zelensky made the comments as he attended the World Economic Forum in Davos, where he called for greater spending on defense from European nations and for a united European security and defense policy. We can't rely on goodwill from a few capitals when it comes to Europe's security, Zelensky said. We need a united European security and defense policy, and all European countries must be willing to spend as much on security as is truly needed, not just as much as they've gotten used to during years of neglect. If it takes 5% of GDP to cover defense, then so be it, 5% it is.
To greet you in the warmest way, welcoming you back to our annual meeting.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about the future. 20 hours ago, President Trump's inauguration took place in Washington, and now everyone is waiting to see what he will do next. His first executive orders have already shown clear priorities. Most of the world's now thinking so. What's going to happen to their relationship with America? What will happen to alliances, to support, to trade? How does President Trump plan to end wars? But no one is asking these kinds of questions about. Let's not forget, there is no ocean separating European countries from Russia. And the European leaders should remember these battles involving North Korean soldiers are now happening in places geographically closer to Davos than to Pyongyang. Russia is turning into a version of North Korea, a country where human life means nothing but they have nuclear weapons and a burning desire to make their neighbors' lives miserable. Could totally step in as a security donor for Syria time to stop getting headaches, and we need a united European security and defense policy, and all European countries must be willing to spend as much on security as it truly needed, not just as much as they have gotten used to during years of neglect. If it takes 5% of GDP to cover defense, then so be it. 5% it is. For example, the Prime Minister of Slovakia is not seeking. Europe needs its own version of the Iron Dome, something that can deal with any kind of threat. We can't rely on goodwill from a few capitals when it comes to Europe's security, and whether it's Washington, Berlin, Paris, London, Rome, or after Putin kicks the bucket, some imaginary Democrat in Moscow someday needs to know how to defend itself. Hundreds of millions of people.
A heavy storm hit the city of Murmansk in northwestern Russia on Tuesday. According to Associated Press, Murmansk Mayor Yuri Serdekin said the prolonged snowfall brought half of the monthly precipitation to the city. More than 100 vehicles and more than 150 workers had been mobilized to clear the snow off the streets, the mayor added.